Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Greer with Secure Content Technologies, and I'm honored to be here today with Keith Mills from Securely. Keith, welcome.
Hey, good to see you, Karen. It's always enjoyed talking to you.
We have some wonderful sessions. So
We
today
do.
we have a really interesting topic around electronic student passes, and maybe our listeners, some of them might already be familiar with electronic hall passes and some of those basic things. But what I'm excited about is Securely is really taking this whole pass concept into a complete student movement solution. So maybe you can dive in just a little bit and tell us about Securely Pass, what it entails, and why our schools would need this.
Oh, be happy to, Karen. Yeah, Securely Pass was created over 13 years ago. And the idea behind it was to help solve some of the problems that schools were having, with traditional hall passes. And we became the largest digital hall pass solution in the country, and we still are. But what we found as time went on, we moved beyond just being a digital hall pass, and we like to say that we're now the complete campus movement solution for you. So besides the day-to-day management and monitoring of hallway traffic, we're going to be able to do so much more. So for example, let me just kind of give you some examples of what we can do beyond just the digital hall pass. We have an appointment pass feature that's going to help staff members, such as your counselors, your teachers, nurses, anybody who needs to meet with a student on a regular basis or even for a single meeting. Our system is going to notify the students and all the adults involved about when and where that student needs to go for a conference, a meeting, or maybe it's just extra help, and we also have another feature in Pass called Visitor. And so what this is going to do, it's going to provide an automated check-in process for your front office staff where they'll be able to validate visitor identities, run background checks through a national database. You can verify visitors to make sure they're authorized to pick up students. You can even silently alert security staff if an unwelcome or potentially dangerous visitor comes in. And we have the ability to print visitor badges with guest photos. And what's even better as administrators, we have reports that are easily accessible, and you can search visitor logs, later down the line if you need to, for whatever purpose you may need. And finally, our tardy management feature, which we've added this last year, is going to simplify the management and tracking of your student tardies. It's going to allow you to capture any late to school students or late to class infractions that may occur. Administrators can create scheduled detentions. They can even build consequence ladders for all of those tardies. And so it enables administrators to gain an insight into the frequency, the patterns of chronic tardiness at the school, even at individual student level. And what this allows them also to do is to make data-informed decisions to address all those tardies and increase attendance rates. So that's kind of what we do as far as that overall concept of being the complete student movement solution.
That's fascinating, really. I loved the piece, and this is news to me. I didn't realize that the visitor component can silently alert security. I think that's pretty cool.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I know we've had some recent school shootings and things like that. That has to be top of mind for our educators today.
It is. Safety is so key. It used to be once upon a time we just worried about teaching kids, but now we got to teach them. We got to keep them safe. It's administrators are constantly dealing with those issues, and we're here to try to provide some tools that can help make that easier for them.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the tools specifically towards administrators and teachers and how it will help them just manage the day-to-day campus activities, which, clearly there's not enough. No one is saying, oh gosh, I've got all this extra time in the world, right? So I know that with Securely Pass, it helps with that whole situation.
Oh, exactly. I was an educator for 31 years, a high school principal for the last 10 before I retired, and I used this product. I used Securely Pass. And some of the things that it allowed us to do, first off, is that it gave us the ability to see who was in the hallway at any given time. That's because before you were just kind of in the blind. You just walk out and see kids roaming the halls. But now you can see who's actually in there with a live dashboard. It's going to help you ensure that students are where they need to be, Make sure that getting there in a timely manner, because passes are happening all the time. It's just a day-to-day thing that we have. But what it's also going to do, it's going to help minimize those interruptions in class by providing the teachers and administrators a variety of different controls. For example, how often students can be out. I can go in and prevent overcrowding in certain locations if needed. So those are just a couple of things that you can do to help those day-to-day things. The one other thing, as a former administrator, I found that the use of reports would allow me to see like locations and times where we had high student traffic. And you mentioned that time, we don't have enough time. Administrators and teachers don't have enough time. We don't have enough resources. But these reports allow you to take that information and say, you know what? Oh, it looks like we need to target this area of the building with as many resources during this time of the day because we're going to have a lot of kids going in this area. And so it's just going to help those day-to-day processes that administrators and teachers have to deal with.
So, and I think as part of this series that I'm doing with Securely, a lot of the focus is on student safety and student wellness. And we had some great conversations with Mike Jolly and Kathleen Bailey about Aware and On Call. And those are some pretty cool solutions as far as just the well-being of the student and in their mind. But PASS goes so far beyond that. It's much more about student safety within the school. So how do you think, what are the components of PASS that you think contribute most to student safety in the school districts?
Right. Well, I've mentioned one already, the live dashboard. That's going to give schools the ability to see who's in the hallway at any given time. Whether you're an administrator or a teacher, if you need to, you can check that and see that live dashboard. But limiting the number of students in specific locations to prevent that overcrowding, what that's going to do is that's going to help prevent vandalism, fights, and even vaping. I can tell you from experience, kids, that's one, they would meet up in the restrooms. And usually if a lot of them were going there was going to be an issue of some type. And so what you're going to be able to do with PASS is, once again, limit how often those kids are going to some of these locations. And on top of that, you can also manage certain students to keep them away from each other. You have some students, for whatever reason, maybe there's an issue with a possible fight or bullying. Those are things that administrators deal with all the time. And so what we can do with our system, if one student's out in the hallway, it's going to automatically, you set it up, it'll automatically stop the other student from being at the hallway at the same time. That is so key. If you can prevent those meetups that happen where there's not an adult around and something bad can happen. Also, and here's the other thing, you mentioned that administrators are constantly having to worry about safety. We got that live dashboard. Let's say you have an emergency lockdown. Every adult on your campus is going to be able to see where those kids are that aren't in class, get them to a safe location, and with a click of a button, they can notify admin, I've got those kids. As an administrator, if you've got to account for every single kid, and time is of the essence. We're going to help you with that.
I think that's absolutely stellar. I would be signing right up for it if I was an administrator. There's another component too, to where it helps maximize the students' learning time and time in class, which, we all think about safety first, and I think that's got to be top of mind, but they're there for an education. And so maximizing their learning time, I think, is also a key component that Securely handles very well.
Oh, yes. That's been one of the great things we've seen once, schools have started using Securely Pass. They report to us a significant drop across the board almost in the number of students roaming the hallways and an actual reduction in the number of classroom interruptions. Kids aren't asking to leave as often. So if they're not leaving class, they're going to be sitting in the classroom. You've got to maximize those times. I'll give you a great example. We had one school reported when they first rolled out the system, they just wanted to test it. They had students that were missing. And remember, we're talking about an 8-hour day, 8-hour day, or actually maybe 6 hours in a classroom per day per student. They had students that were missing up to 10 hours a week for just leaving class, different classes. And they didn't realize it until they started using our system. They were able to address those situations. Everything in our system, you can pull reports. And so what you can do then, if you see a student, hey, this student's getting out of class a lot, they're missing a lot of class time, then it's going to give the administrators and the teachers the information they need to address the issue, before it becomes a significant problem. And pull those parents in. And when you have those parent teacher conferences, if you can have the documentation, so hey, look, here's what's happening. Here's what we want to do to help your son or daughter. And so we feel like this is just going to be another tool in their toolbox they can use to help maximize the student in class time.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And I think it's an important point to make that all of these tools are not meant to catch the student at doing something. They're meant to really help the whole environment become more ready for them to learn. And one of the issues that I hear from a lot of young people today is they don't feel heard, they don't feel seen, they don't feel understood. And all of these tools that Securely has really do help that situation. They help the student be seen, be heard. If there's an issue with them being bullied, and PASS can pick up on that and stop that other student from being in the hallway, gosh, can you imagine what a relief that is to that young person?
Oh, exactly. We first of all, we say we're not a gotcha program, and we're not trying to catch you, kids. We want to make sure that kids feel safe and are making the most of their time in class. And it's, I've actually seen where students have reported to teachers, that they feel so much safer out in the hallways than they did before. There were some kids who were afraid to go to the restroom. Now, isn't that a shame that they were afraid to go to the restroom because they thought something might happen to them? And once they started using PASS, it just, it changed the whole atmosphere of that campus.
That breaks my heart to think that a kid would be afraid to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that we've got technology is an amazing thing. And if we can use it to better our children and our educators, I think we should definitely stay the course. Thank you, Keith. This was one of the best conversations I think we've had so far, and I look forward to many more with you. And to our listeners, if you're interested in more information on Securely PASS or any of the Securely student safety and wellness solutions, we'll put up some information on how you can get in touch with me. I would love to speak with you and help you with those things. Thank you, Keith. I look forward to our next discussion and appreciate you today.
Thank you, Karen. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.